You are listening to the So Now What podcast with Lana Manikowski, episode number 155.
So now what? These three words raced through my mind time and time again during my journey through fertility treatments. I tried desperately to have a child, but never was able. I yearned for a community to join that could understand my struggles. I couldn't find one, so I created one with the So Now What podcast. I love that you found us.
Hello, beauty. Welcome to another episode of the So Now What podcast, where, every week we talk about what it means to move forward after fertility treatments did not bring you the child that you dreamed of. Before we get started, I have to tell you, I am so excited. There is so much exciting happening in my world, and I'm going to be passing it on to you because, everything I focus on is finding an opportunity to create the void that I felt when I left fertility treatments without the child that I dreamed of, and to hopefully ease that burden off you and anyone else who is going to end up in that predicament where they leave fertility treatments and they are given zero resources. So most notably is the completion of my upcoming book, So Now What? Of course, have to keep with the branding of the podcast. The cover design is complete. Thank you to everybody who voted and helped me decide on my cover design. It looks phenomenal. I think you're going to love it. If you're interested in learning more about the book, I'm going to put a link right here in the show notes if you want to know about when the book is coming out. If you live somewhere in a community that has an independent bookstore, or you know of somebody who owns a bookstore, or you would like to help me do a book signing in your local neighborhood, please let me know. I am willing to travel to help get this word out to all the women out there who are struggling to create a life they love, even though they didn't have the children that they always dreamed of. That is what's very exciting for me. Let's get started on this week's episode because we are going to talk about pity. Oh, that word just sounds so disempowering. Because let's be honest, there are days when you feel pity for yourself. There are days when you feel sorry for yourself. Days when you wake up and think, I never imagined this would be my life. There's probably days when the weight of not having a child you wanted so badly feels super heavy and maybe even unbearable. And then when somebody else looks at you with that sadness and says, I just feel so bad for you, it could feel like they're reinforcing the pain that you are already carrying. So in this episode, I want to acknowledge both sides of that. The part of you that does feel sorrow for what didn't happen, and the part of you that's just trying to figure out how to move forward when the world around you just happens to see your life as something that's supposed to be mourned. I'm going to share how to recognize and process your own feelings, how to stop internalizing those feelings that other people have with you or have for you and the pittiness they have for you, and how to start shifting towards a future where your life feels meaningful. And even if you don't know what that looks like yet, I just want you to listen in. So if this is something that you're struggling with, know that in the podcast, because I only, do 10 to 15 minute episodes, we can't get through it all. Really, where the work happens is if you want to book a Thrive call, I could help you with a free Thrive call, kind of get everything out that's been troubling for you, maybe help you put a plan together that'll help you move forward. Not just by like pretending that you're okay, but actually finding ways to start feeling connected to your life again. Or if you want to join Thrive After Infertility, if you are on my mailing list, you know that I have a super sick deal going on right now if you want to join the Thrive Mastermind. So if you're not on my mailing list, you need to be on my mailing list. There's going to be a link also in the show notes to how to get into my love letters, so you don't miss out on these deals that are exclusive just to the people on my mailing list. So let's get started. We're going to talk about pity you feel for yourself. Before we even talk about handling other people's pity, let's just acknowledge the truth. There are moments when you do feel sorry for yourself, and that is way okay. All right. Grief does not just disappear because you've decided that you want to move forward. You don't wake up one day and just like, boom, suddenly feel free of this sadness. And honestly, when other people express pity, it can make your own pain feel even heavier because there's a part of you that likely agrees with them. And let me tell you how this showed up just the other day with one of my clients, Erin, who told me that she tries so hard to act like she's okay. But when somebody gives you that sad look, she just wants to crumble, because the truth is, she told me that she does feel sorry for herself sometimes. And when they pity her, it's proof that other people see her life as sad. Let me say, I get it. When you already have moments where you feel this weight of not becoming a mom, somebody else's pity can just magnify that or feel like a confirmation that your life is incomplete. But here's what I was helping Erin see that I want you to hear too. The part of you that grieves does not mean that your entire life is something to be pitied. You can feel sorrow for what didn't happen and still begin to believe that there is something else out there for you. We might say, well, yeah, but if everybody else looks at my life as pitiful, how can this ever be something that I feel connected to? How could this life feel meaningful and purposeful to me when the rest of the world does not see it that way? And the truth is, other people's pity is not about you. Their pity comes from, most of the time, about them. When people see not being able to have kids as something worth pitying, it's usually because they can't imagine their own life without children. So they assumed, because they can't see it for themselves, that you must feel totally disconnected and incomplete without children. And for them, their children are what give their life meaning. So they assume that that's just the only way that you ever feel fulfilled. And I get it. You might be thinking that same thing right now, too. And thirdly, they think that they're being kind by acknowledging your struggle in a way that seems like they're giving you a sympathy card, but actually, they don't realize that it is reinforcing your pain. And one of my clients, Michelle, the other day told me that she was struggling with this in her own family, that her mom constantly says things like, I wish you would have been able to have a baby. You know, you would have been such a great mother. And every time she heard it, she just felt more crushed. But through the work that we're doing together in Thrive After Infertility, she started to see that her mom's pity was not about her life being sad. It was about her mom's own belief system. For her mom, being a mother had given her the most validating part of her identity. And because of that, she just couldn't understand that Michelle's life would ever be full without having that same experience. And just because motherhood was her mom's source of meaning, it didn't mean that it had to be Michelle's. Once Michelle recognized that, it was like this light bulb moment for her. And it was just beautiful for me to witness that she was then able to stop internalizing that she didn't have to prove anything. She just had to focus on figuring out what it was she wanted her life to be like and what purpose and meaning and validation she could create for herself in her life that had nothing to do with having a child. So if you resonate with that, or you have a mom or an aunt or a cousin who always is like, oh, you should have had a baby, like this is so unfair, or life is unfair, or I don't know why this happened to you, that language might make them feel as though they are recognizing your struggle, and you might resonate with it too. But that's not the type of language that is going to help you move forward, feeling connected to your future and feeling connected to a life without children. So it's one thing to understand why people feel sorry for you, but how do you stop feeling like you need to justify your happiness or explain your sadness? I'm going to kind of break this down into like three different things. So there's three key shifts that I help people recognize that these are where you're going to get your power. Accepting that you can't control how others feel. We know that. Like, we want people to say things differently, do things differently, think differently, but some people are always going to see things through their own lens. You can't teach someone to see things through your lens and expect that all of a sudden this pain is going to go away for you. You don't have to change their opinion. You can only work on how you feel about your story. And that is something that I never knew was available until I understood the power of life coaching. And that is why the clients that I work with have such success, because they realize that they are the author of their story and how they decide to tell it. Second point is giving yourself permission to grieve, but also discovering what's next. You don't have to have it figured out. And it's okay if you're not sure what fulfillment looks like, because What matters is that you're open to figuring it out. I'll help you figure out what it is that fulfillment is going to be like for you. Like that is my job as a life coach. And when somebody hires me to work with them, I help them figure that out on their terms, not on my terms. But it's just so important to be somebody who is open to figuring it out. And then thirdly, release the need to prove anything. Some people are just absolutely never going to understand what a meaningful life with kids looks like. And that's okay. Just like some people are never going to understand why you chose to go to the college you went to, why you chose to marry the person you married, why you live in the city that you live in. I mean, there is just always people that are going to have opinions, and you don't need to prove to them what you did and why you chose to not adopt, or why you chose not to do an egg donor, or why you chose that surrogacy was not the right option for you. You do not have to convince them. You just have to take the steps for you that will move you towards a life that you feel good about. So when somebody says something to you that pities you, I think it's really important to know, how are you going to respond? So if you haven't yet, I encourage you to download my top 27 things that people say when you're childless and how to respond. There's going to be more about that later, or you can also check the show notes about that. But when someone says something like, "Oh, I just feel so bad for you," instead of trying to convince them that you're happy, try saying something like, "Hey, I know this may seem sad to you, but this is my reality, and I'm working on accepting it." When someone says, "Oh my gosh, you must feel so left out," instead of being like, "No, I'm fine. Like, I'm good." Like, if you're not there yet, don't try to convince someone of something that you don't truly feel yet. Like, to me, that is like that toxic positivity BS, that if you're not there, don't act like you are. But maybe saying something like, "Hey, I'm just really trying to figure out what life looks like for me. It's different, but I'm totally open to discovering what else is going to be possible for me if I can't have children." And maybe when someone says, "Oh, I just wish things would have turned out differently for you," instead of brushing it off and feeling like you have to agree, maybe say something like, "Me too. I really wanted to be a mom, but I'm working on feeling connected to how things ended up." I hope that this helps you, because if you've been carrying around that weight of other people's pity, I just want you to know that it's okay to feel sad about what happened, but you are not somebody to be pitied. Your life is just unfolding, girl. There is so much new information that you are moving forward with. And while it may seem like you're just not exactly sure what's going to come next, I want to give you permission to just be open to it. Be open to the opportunity that something better might happen for you. Life might get to a point where it feels much better than it does right now. So if you're ready to start exploring what else is out there for you, I can absolutely help you do that. That is why I do what I do. But it's not going to happen until you decide that you are ready to take a next step forward. That is exactly why I make my Thrive calls free, because it gives you every opportunity to say yes to you. And remember that this 45-minute conversation is going to be all about you, about creating the plan that you want to create. If you feel like you just can't envision what your future is going to look like without kids, I'm going to help you decide, like, what is it that you want in your future, so that you are not just surviving, you're actually feeling connected to your life again. So check the show notes for the link for that. And I hope you have a beautiful week. I love you. And remember that it's never too late to discover your meaning. Talk to you next week. Hey, real quick, I just wanted to tell you about an awesome resource I created. If you have ever found yourself in conversations with people, or maybe people offering you suggestions about what you should do to become a mom, it's called The Top 27 Things People Say When You're Childless and How to Respond. You can get your copy free at lanamanikowski.com/things people say.